Today's video is for the first year students of MBA on the subject Essentials of Psychology for Managers. The term psychology derives from the Greek root psyche meaning soul or mind and logos meaning word. Psychology is literally the study of mind or soul, and people defined it the way until the early 19th century. Around 1920, psychologists became disenchanted with the idea of studying the mind. First, research deals with what we observe, and the mind is unobservable. Second, talking about the mind implies it is a thing or object. Mental activity is a process. It is not like the river, but like the flow of the river. Not like the automobile, but like the movement of automobile. Beginning in the early 19th century, psychologists defined their field as study of behavior. Certainly the study of behavior is important, but is behavior the only thing we care about? When you look at this optical illusion and say that horizontal part of the top line looks longer than that of the bottom line, although really they are of the same length. So as a compromise, let's define psychology as a systematic study of behavior and experience. The word experience lets us discuss your perceptions without implying that a mind exists independently of your body. When most people think of psychologists, they think of clinical psychologists, those who try to help the worried, depressed, or otherwise troubled people. Clinical psychology is only one part of psychology. Psychology also includes research on sensation and perception, learning and memory, hunger and thirst, sleep, attention, child development, and more. Perhaps you expect that a course in psychology will teach you to analyze people and decipher hidden aspects of their personality. It will not. You will learn to understand many aspects of behavior, but you will gain no dazzling powers. Ideally, you will become more skeptical of those who claim to analyze people's personality from small samples of their behavior. Psychology is the scientific study of the mind and behavior. While you might understand what psychology is, many people are not quite so sure about what psychology does. What purpose does psychology serve? What are its goals? Let's take a closer look at the major goals of psychology. What psychologists try to accomplish and how psychology is used to solve real world problems is by describing behavior, explaining that behavior, predicting that behavior, and then controlling it. One of the first goals of psychology is to simply describe. Through describing the behavior of humans, we are better able to understand it and gain a better perspective on what is considered normal and abnormal. Psychology researchers utilize a range of research methods to help and describe behavior, including naturalistic observations, case studies, correlational studies, surveys, and self report inventories. Researchers might start by observing human behavior and then describing a problem. By understanding what is happening, psychologists can then work on learning more about why the behavior happens and even how to change it. For example, imagine the researchers want to learn more about consumer behavior. They might begin by observing what is already happening in a population. Market research surveys, direct observation, and other data collection methods would then be used to gather information on what people are doing and when they shop. This gives researchers great insight into what is really happening in a particular population. As you might imagine, psychologists are interested in explaining behavior in addition to merely describing it. Why do people do things they do? What factors contribute to development, personality, social behavior, and mental health problems? Throughout psychology's history, many theories have emerged to help explain such of the various aspects of human behavior. A few examples of such approaches including classical conditioning and attachment theories. Some theories focus on just a small aspect of human behavior. These are known as mini theories, while others serve as all-encompassing theories designed to explain all human psychology. These are known as grand theories. In previous example, researchers wanted to get a better understanding of what consumers are purchasing and why. Data was previously collected on purchasing behaviors. Psychologists would then conduct a research to understand why certain things are happening. They might ask questions about why people purchase certain items or what factors motivate them to make certain purchases. Psychology predicting behavior. Not surprisingly, another primary goal of psychology is to make predictions about what we think and act. Once we understand more about what happens and why it happens, we can use that information to make predictions about when, why, and how it might happen again in the future. Successfully predicting behavior is also one of the best ways to know if we are understanding the underlying causes of our actions. Predictions can allow psychologists to make guesses about human behavior without necessarily understanding the mechanisms of underlying the phenomena. For example, if researchers notice that scores on a particular aptitude test can be used to predict high school dropout rates, that information can then be used to estimate how many students in a particular group might drop out of school each year. In the previous example, looking at the consumer behavior, psychologists would use the information they have collected to try to make predictions about what consumers will purchase next. Businesses and marketers often employ consumer psychologists to help them make such predictions so that they can create products that will appeal the buyers. Psychology changing behavior. Finally, perhaps most importantly, psychology strives to change, influence, or control behavior to make constructive and lasting changes in people's lives. In our previous example, researchers might take what they know about the link between scores on an aptitude test and dropout rates and the use of information to develop programs designed to help students stay in school. From treating mental illness to enhancing human well being, changing human behavior is a huge focus of psychology. Marketers and businessmen often use the understanding gained from the psychological research to try to influence and persuade buyers to behave in certain ways. For example, they might design advertising campaigns designed to make message appeal to a target audience. By tailoring their messaging to specifically appeal to a certain type of buyer, those individuals are often more likely to respond. So, as you have learned, the four primary goals of psychology are to describe, explain, predict, and control. In many ways, these objectives are similar to the kinds of things you probably do every day as you interact with others. When dealing with a child, for example, you might ask questions like, what is he doing? Why is he doing that? What could happen if I responded in this way? And what can I do to stop doing that? Psychologists ask many of same type of questions, but they utilize the scientific method to rigorously test and systematically understand both human and animal behavior. So students, that was it for goals of psychology. In the next video, we'll learn more about history of psychology. Till then, stay tuned for the next video. Thank you.